we have to acknowledge that current drug policy that is imposed by UN conventions, the same institution that is running COP26, is criminalizing and destroying communities. And we have to find ways of reforming these policies. And we believe that the only way to fundamentally change this trade is to bring it into the legal sphere.
The promenade, the people walking, the people talking, people talking.
While I appreciate that the environmental movement has the future of our planet on its shoulders, I would really encourage those working on the ground or in NGOs. The war on drugs is a barrier to climate action, and one that actually has an obvious solution that could have an impact within our lifetime. And the move towards legal regulation is happening around the world, and those models and the input from the environmental sector and that knowledge of how to protect the environment absolutely has to be key to what those legal frameworks look like, so that they deliver the highest level of safeguard for our planet. And without the input of the environmental movement in developing and designing those legal structures, the environment will be left off the agenda.
Despite overwhelming evidence of the impact of drug control on global environment, why do you think has drug control policy been sidelined in discussions to mitigate climate change?
Bringing the idea that the drugs trade is a barrier to climate change, like at best is probably too much for a lot of people to think about right now. And at worst is going back to this inconvenient truth that drugs causes shame and stigma and people do not want to be associated with it. But this trade is causing climate change and will be a barrier to climate solutions. And so whether it's social justice, racial justice, international development, climate justice movement, like whatever your movement's called, drug policy intersects with it, intersects with every aspect of life. But we have done an incredibly good job. PR on this has been brilliant to make us believe that it doesn't exist and that it isn't a problem.
Why should development organizations like the Health Poverty Action be engaging in drug policy?
International development, my understanding of it, is to support systems that support people. So ensuring that there are health systems and justice systems and education systems in countries that function, that support people, and in particular the most vulnerable people in those communities. And so for a development organization, we're looking at what provides support for people and what erodes that support. And the cause of poverty and inequality is the current war on drugs. Prohibition criminalises those people in that trade. Pushing anything underground means that it is unregulated, it is unaccountable, there is no transparency. And so development organisations have to take a stand that whether you that it isn't about whether we do or don't consume drugs. The world consumes drugs. Our role is to ensure that that is done in a way that reduces and mitigates harm.
What are the barriers faced by development organizations in advocating for drug policy reform, especially at the time of climate change?
The barriers that the international development community, this is so starkly obvious, but because of years of stigma and years of pretending that this does not exist, even though every person in every room probably knows somebody, if it's not themselves, that takes drugs, that trade exists, and it's a billion-trillion-dollar trade. That is so problematic. It is spilling into institutions that actually could have an enormous impact on climate solutions and social justice around the world. The irony is that this is a policy that we could flip and turn on its head if we were to legally regulate this trade. We could pull it from the darkness and bring it into the light. It wouldn't solve climate change, but it would enable us to create accountable governments that would have the mechanisms, the resources, the efficacy to begin to create systems that mitigate and adapt to climate change.